Academica Media. You are listening to Charter School Superstars, bringing you the voices of an education revolution.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Ryan Kairalla. Our guest this week on the program is the executive director of the Launch Expeditionary Learning Charter School in Brooklyn, an innovative school that emphasizes project-based learning, ecosystem learning models, and restorative justice. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting www.launchschool.org. We are happy to welcome Geoffrey Roehm on a Charter School Superstars. Hello, Geoffrey.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing so well. I have really enjoyed getting to learn about your school and the pretty innovative approach that you take to things like project-based learning and sustainability and combating environmental racism. Really exciting stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you think makes your school so special?
Absolutely. I think it always starts with the people. We can talk about our model and, I'm sure we'll get to that, but, like any school, we're a community. I think we're a really special community of people and, anything, I think positive that ultimately we generated probably comes from relationships. So that's model agnostic, although we certainly have, an opinion about what models are most useful. As part of that community that makes up our school, we're a New York City outward bound school, and so we're part of a network of 14 schools located here in New York City. We're actually the only charter school in that network. The rest are district public schools, which is pretty unique, something that we're pretty proud of. We don't kind of draw a line around one way to do school or another, as long as it's about how do we help kids to achieve their amazing potential. And as part of that network, we use what's called the EL education model, which is a constructivist project-based learning model, that's really about kind of empowering kids, whole child development, and putting kids in positions where they can have experiences in their learning, right? We think for kids, but really for all people, the most powerful way to learn is to have an experience. If you get a room full of people together, adults or kids, and you say, well, tell me about something that was really powerful that you learned in your life. People don't usually recount, well, it was, when I was sitting in a row in second period and Mrs. Whoever's class, doing my worksheet. It was this thing that I experienced that, affected how I thought of myself or how I thought of the world, or, and it made me motivated to learn more, and then I did learn more and I developed skills and things like that. So, that's what we try to provide for kids, what we try to co-create with our community, that kind of learning environment.
You'll be hard-pressed to find a bigger proponent of experiential learning, project-based learning than I am, and I am always in awe of the way that innovative charter school leaders like you are really just getting the most out of this model and empowering students along the way. And I think the coolest demonstration of what you are doing in that space is the new campus you're building. You recently announced that your school is building a new campus on the site of the Floyd Bennett field in Brooklyn. And this campus is going to really be able to emphasize the experiential learning stuff, but it's also going to have a focus on equity and sustainability and combating environmental racism. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? It looks really cool when I've seen the pictures.
Absolutely. It is very exciting. Just to start with saying that there's over 1,000 acres of land available in the middle of New York City with pretty much nothing on it is continually a shocking thing to say and to think about. Yeah. Not all of that land is ours, but we have the opportunity on that amazing piece of land, which was actually New York City's first municipal airport, to build this experiential learning campus. And I guess two things about it. The first place I'll start that is really inspiring to me is that, this was really kind of conceived and brought to life, this concept, like in the depths of the pandemic and in a really community driven way. We spent about 6 months working with an amazing design team and a significant community advisory committee and student design teams and faculty design teams and families and community partners to come up with a concept of, what could we create that, looks like the future of school for us, and how will it be able to meet the needs of our community. And so I think it's that piece is really inspiring to me. This wasn't my idea or any one particular person's idea. It was sort of a group effort to bring the concept to life. And it has really grown since, we started to develop the concept to really be a coalition of exceptional partners, including our school, where our high school will be built. That includes, amazing organizations across New York City, like the Campaign Against Hunger and New York Sunworks and the Billion Oyster Project and Solar One and our institutional partner, NYC Outward Bound Schools, amongst a number of others who already serve hundreds of thousands of kids across New York City, coming together in partnership to create, a learning hub and what we would call an ecosystem model of learning. We really believe that the most powerful learning experiences exist outside of the four walls of the school, right? And that kind of siloed school models, that are reminiscent of the industrial past and the reason why they were created to sort of support, an industrial economy, right? Like the future-looking vision of school really needs to break out of that mold. It needs to break down walls between schools and communities. And so to be able to create what we feel like is a model of that, because we have this incredible good fortune of having this enormous piece of land to work with, where we can bring together all of these community assets to support kids in having not just really powerful learning experiences, but experiences, I think, critically, that are aligned to solving the biggest problems of our time that we face. If kids are not being prepared in school today to address how do we save our planet, right? How do we address climate change and sustainability? How do we create more equity in the world, right? Then what are we preparing them for? And I think that we see that, like we see, a large majority of students sort of like coming into the adult world not prepared with the skills and the mindsets to address the biggest problems of our time. You hear that from employers too. And it's not that kids are not capable. It's not that any of us are not capable, but they're the system that we've set up to prepare kids to be those citizens, right? Who kind of take on the world in that way. That system is not set up to meet that need. And so, to be able to put kids in authentic situations with organizations that prepare kids, to think about these big issues, right? An organization like Solar One, right? We talk about, a fast growing market where there's a lot of opportunity, right? And so there's an economic driver here too, right? And an equity issue that we solve too, right? As we look at kids, ensuring that they can graduate from school and get a good job and get a good paying job, right? That can address a lot of the equity issues, but a job also that is set up to address these great problems that we face. Or an organization like New York Sunworks, right? Doing hydroponic farming and what kind of the future of farming can look like in big cities. So we're really excited about how, sort of this broad community of organizations and people across New York City are able to come together and try to create this learning hub and this learning campus. And I should just say one more thing. We are so lucky that our own students will be able to go from our middle school and graduate and go on to this high school and be on this incredible campus every day. But the campus isn't just for launch. Launch is actually just one organization that's there. The campus is ultimately going to be open to hundreds of public schools across New York City, what we anticipate to being tens of thousands of students who can come and participate in these really powerful learning experiences that specifically can help prepare them, if they so choose, on career pathways and gaining career skills towards these careers of the future focused on sustainability.
So the idea is that students all over New York can have access to this space to be able to do this kind of ecosystem learning, project-based learning stuff, but that your school is going to have a more permanent everyday presence on this property?
That's right. And, the impetus of the idea, we're really proud that it sort of grew out of our particular school community. And we feel really lucky that we're going to get to have an amazing building, an amazing high school that is worthy of our students and everything that they deserve, that looks like a school of the future, and they get to be there every day. And this is an enormous piece of land with enormous potential to utilize education, right, as a leverage point to solve these big issues that we face. Right? That's what education should be doing. It should be the primary leverage point that we have to build a better world. That should be the whole point of going to school. How do we use it to build a better world? And, it's just the opportunity, because of the size of this space that we have, to be able to use it really for kids across New York City, to learn those schools and have those experiences, is the intention. And we're really excited about that.
I'm still in awe of just the piece of land itself. When I saw this land, if you just look at this land and, without any context, and you ask somebody, where in the United States is this land located? Somebody's going to say Kansas. The last thing they're going to think is New York City. I mean, an unbelievable piece of land. And I would imagine that for many charter school leaders, one of the biggest challenges they have is often finding space. And so, they all got to be very jealous of what you of this great fortune your school has.
Well, everybody's going to be able to come and
enjoy
and
it,
take advantage of it. So, yeah.
So, can I get a little bit more backstory on how this came together? Because I would imagine that a lot of folks in the public and private sector, I'm sure, would love to be able to get their hands on this incredible piece of land in New York City. How did it come to be that this group of schools got to use this land for these really important educational purposes?
Yeah, I think one clarifying point is that we don't get all 1,000 acres, and we wouldn't need it, right? Even when we talk about tens of thousands of students, I mean, it's an area that's bigger than Central Park, right? I mean, it's enormous.
Mm-hmm.
The origin story is a good one. We were this piece of land sort of juts off of the end of Brooklyn, and often people will only pass it if they're driving by to go over a bridge that actually goes out to Queens and the Rockaways and some of the beaches that people go to out there. And you still might not actually know what it is as you pass by. We were aware of this piece of land, and there was an old climbing tower that was out there. We took our staff out there maybe 4 or 5 years ago at this point, to do some team building prior to the start of the school year. And we were all out there, a number of us, and we started to look around and just say, wait a second, it's this old airport. All the buildings are falling down. I mean, there's really not much there at all. And it was just a moment of like, what could this be? We really didn't know at the time. That took a lot of community input to say this is something that it could be. My own understanding of the various attempts to try to develop Floyd Bennett Field, they are long and varied, and involve, folks from tiny organizations up to the federal government trying to figure out what could be sort of the next evolution of this piece of land that will really honor the public and public access and be something transformational. Again, a piece of land bigger than Central Park. How many people go to Central Park every year, right?
Yeah.
If you think of Governor's Island in New York, Governor's Island is an island that sits in the middle of New York Harbor. For those folks that don't know, that if you go back just a few years ago, right, the only way to get out there is a ferry. Absolutely nobody went out there ever for any reason. And there was an effort put into Governor's Island, which included, by the way, putting a school on it to really try to develop it for public use and for public good. And over 1 million people a year go there. And when you think about those numbers, you can kind of put into perspective, okay, well, Floyd Bennett Field is similar to that, but it's 10 times the size. We're talking about millions of people that could access, this area for a lot of different reasons. And one of those reasons that we're just so excited about, right, is a big focus on education and for the benefit, of New York City's public school children. And that's not something I think that if there is a big piece of land that could be developed is typically thought of, right, from a development perspective to say, well, how could we use this to support, public school kids in being able to learn? And so I think it's a really exciting component of it.
What an exciting opportunity for not just the students at your school, but for all the New York City public school students. It really speaks to the power of education to transform communities. What does the timetable look like for something like this? When are we going to see a physical presence for your school in this really impressive piece of real estate?
Yeah, so our high school will open in the fall of 2025. And so our current sixth graders who are just right outside in the hallway, actually now as we speak, will be our first incoming class of ninth graders that fall. And then the development of an initial sort of significant acreage around that building that will have physical infrastructure for, a number of those organizations that I already named, things like a 3-acre farm, right, run by the Campaign Against Hunger, where kids are going to be learning sustainable agriculture practices, right? All, a high and low ropes course. I should mention, I didn't before, to your point, that if you looked at it on a map, you wouldn't know that it was New York City, right? There is incredible camping that people have the opportunity to do if they go out to Floyd Bennett Field. So kids who are going to be able to come and, with a small group of their fellow students, spend a couple of nights at Floyd Bennett Field, feeling like you are maybe in Kansas or somewhere else, right, in the wilderness, while also participating with all of these organizations and these amazing learning opportunities. So the development of that initial acreage, we anticipate being complete around 2027. And then there are, there's a phase 2, a phase 3, a phase 4 that involve a number of other components of Floyd Bennett Field and bringing them online with other organizations, in partnership, hopefully, with the Department of Education, to create this learning ecosystem. So it's exciting. It's also long-term work.
It is exciting. This is definitely a initiative that we all want to keep our eye on. And you can find out more about what this school is up to by visiting www.launchschool.org. Geoffrey, before we let you go, since I'm feeling so inspired, I want to definitely get your answer to this final question. If with the snap of your fingers, Geoffrey, you could make any change to the education system, what change would it be?
Well, so I already mentioned this, so hopefully this, this doesn't feel like a cop-out, but, the breaking down walls between schools and communities, I think, is a critical component of how we ultimately achieve educational excellence and educational equity. And it is just a fact that almost every school in America, even the schools that are good at finding powerful experiences for kids, are really siloed. And so if I could snap my fingers, I would say that, we move away from a siloed school model to a learning anytime, anywhere model. And that sounds probably like, well, how would you do that? There are a lot of ways to do that. And there are places that are starting to do that very thing, utilizing the incredible assets that exist all around them. And, as soon as schools start to experience what that learning feels like, and lots of schools do it in little bits, they always say, well, I want more. I want to do more of this because I see the power that it has. So that would be the first step, if we had our way.
Well, we certainly have met one school in this episode that has embraced a lot of those ideals, and we all can't help but be inspired by it. Geoffrey, thank you so much for hanging out with us on this episode. We've learned a lot. We have been blown away by your school story, and it's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for your time this week.
Really appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for checking out Charter School Superstars.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.